noon Eastern time. Get your deep fried treats. Say hello to Big Tex. And settle in for what should be an absolutely epic edition of the Red River Showdown. So, Red River Rivalry, Red River Showdown, Red River Shootout, whatever it's going to be called.
Shootout, yeah.
Where's this one to say? Is it Oklahoma? Who you played versus how they played them. Toughest opponent that they will have on their regular season schedule. Easily. Most likely loss. How do you think the Sooners square up against a Texas team that we have seen tested more in this matchup?
I'm pretty excited to watch this. I've watched Texas so far. I'm pretty convinced that Texas has a good O-line and a really good defensive line, especially on the defensive interior. Obviously, we know Texas has elite weapons. We'll see if Jatavian Sanders plays, the tight end, who's a total stud for Texas. Like I'm fairly certain that I know what Texas's floor is, right? I don't know 100% their ceiling yet. Like, are they the best team in the country? They have to be in the conversation. I don't know if they necessarily are the best team in the country, but like they have really elite weapons, and I think are much better on defense than they've been in quite some time. They blocked Bama pretty effectively for a lot of that football game. So there is some signal that for me. On the Oklahoma side, like they definitely play a style. Like they look great. Okay. Honestly, as far as just defensively, they look really, really good. But they do play a style where it's like you have to be a certain level of team to handle it. And the level of team they've played so far really can't handle it. I mean, SMU's offense has been disappointing so far this year. They faced Tulsa's third stringer. We've seen Cincinnati's offense. Cincinnati was in the stretch of not scoring an offensive touchdown in 16 offensive possessions, right? Who else did they play? Arkansas State, where that was literally before they put the good quarterback in because they didn't know they had him because he was a true freshman. So Oklahoma has played like an overwhelming style to me in this one. And I know I'm running long here. I watched a lot of clips last night. I don't know how well that style is going to hold up against Texas. It might. We don't know. I don't think we're stealing on the number here. Like I'm not sure this number should be like 11 or something like that. I probably have a pick in this one for tomorrow, but we'll see. There have been some things that teams did to Oklahoma that make me think, if that team had a better quarterback, if they had a better receiver, if they could block it up for half a count longer, there are some opportunities to burn Oklahoma defensive on Oklahoma's defense. So to me, that is something that I think Texas is going to watch. I reminded of, remember the Texas-Kansas State game last year? Texas went unbalanced a lot, and they did a lot of this stuff with like trips into the boundary. And a lot of teams do struggle with this because it's a hard check to make because it makes it hard to fit the run out of it, but still cover it. I will look for Texas to attack Oklahoma's safeties in coverage down the field because there are ways to scheme it up where you get those guys one-on-ones, and I do think Texas has a pretty good matchup there. I think if you're Brent for Oklahoma and you live by the blitz, you die by the blitz. Like I would just come after yours nonstop, try to play a really up-tempo game. Maybe yours panics under the pressure. Maybe you get home a little bit, right? Like maybe he throws you a cookie or two and you take it back the other way. Like I would not. I know people are like, oh, Texas in the red zone, like it's been a problem. It has a little bit, but I would play really aggressively if I'm Oklahoma. It's what's got you here so far. I wouldn't play a bunch of soft stuff. Texas wise, do you remember Ohio State Clemson in the Sugar Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to take this game out of yours hands in terms of like reading it up. I just want to go shot plays. Just give me a bunch of shot plays. I'm going to hit enough of them to get to a number that I feel good about, which is probably, give me 30 something. I don't want to give Quinn Ewers the chance to make a bunch of mistakes.
I look at this game and everything I see based on just the numbers and trying to break this down tells me to take Texas. But I've also seen this game like 1,000 times, and none of that ever really matters when these two teams play. So it's one of those weird situations. Quinn Ewers is definitely worse under pressure. I mean, every quarterback is worse under pressure than they are without it. But I think that there's a significant drop off in his performance when he is pressured. I don't have the numbers in front of me. This is just trying to remember what I saw. I think I'm correct here. I might be wrong. If I'm wrong,
yeah.
Okay. So I understand that. I do think if you are Oklahoma, you want to bring pressure, but at the same time, again, this is going back to the same thing we talked about with Alabama and A&M. I wonder if you might want to just make him take those short shots, because we saw in the Alabama game, like, they hit those deep throws. And you're right. Like, the safeties that Oklahoma has could be a problem for them against these Texas receivers. It's something that the Longhorns can exploit. But what if he doesn't hit those deep shots? You know what I mean? Like, what can this offense do without those? Because if he wasn't hitting them against Alabama, and I know this is really duh, but if he wasn't hitting them against Alabama, Texas isn't winning that game. So I wonder if you try to take that away and see if it works. If it proves ineffective, okay, then maybe I start dialing up the heat and trying to, force him into a turnover and see if I can get home. But again, that offensive line is so freaking good that the Longhorns have that I don't know how confident I'm going to be. If I'm going to generate pressure, I'm going to have to bring extra rushers. I'm going to have to bring them from different spots. And maybe if they don't get home, that's going to leave my secondary, which is not the greatest, in a lot of bad spots covering dudes that are really hard to cover. So you could get burned pretty easily by it. But we talk about Texas's struggles in the red zone on offense. Where Texas doesn't struggle in the red zone is on defense. They have been one of the best red zone defenses in the country. And we talk about Brent Venables and like Oklahoma defense playing well, but there's a question about how they've played. I think we're kind of underselling how good this Texas defense has been. Like, if you look at a lot of the metrics, I think the Longhorns are better defensively than the Sooners have been, and they've done it against a tougher schedule. I mean, they played Alabama, for Christ's sake. So, like I said, everything about this game has me thinking, oh, this is going to be Texas big. No problem. They're going to be able to run the ball, throw the ball. Oklahoma will get points. I just don't know if they'll be able to keep up or get enough stops. But at the same time, I do think Oklahoma can exploit this Texas defense in a way that Alabama couldn't, because while Jalen Milroe will take shots down the field and he's capable of hitting them, he's just not very efficient. I think the Oklahoma offense is a bit more efficient in what it wants to do. And I think Dylan Gabriel could have more success as a passer in this one than Milroe did in that Alabama offense. And I think Texas needs to respect it more than they did against Alabama in that game. So this is going to be a really interesting showdown between these two quarterbacks. And also, I've seen a lot of jokes in the chat about it. What happens if Dylan Gabriel gets hurt? Like, everybody there's always a quarterback hurt in this game. Yeah. And then, then Jackson Arnold comes in and Texas's defense is probably in even more trouble than it was.
What if Quinn Ewers gets hurt?
Well, then Malik Murphy comes in and he's awesome too. Like, that's the thing. There are a lot of good quarterbacks in this game. Can we figure out a way to get them all on the field at the same time just to see what happens? Maybe throw some 2 QB offenses out there. But no, this is going to be a very fun game in which I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. I have an inkling, but I have no trust in that. And I really, really cannot wait to watch it on Saturday.
Let's empty the notebook. I think Tom brings up a great point on the Texas defense, right? Like, they have been elite in the red zone. What do we think Dylan Gabriel struggles with? Throws to the wide side of the field because his arm's not big, right? Do you want to force him to make more difficult throws, which could result in explosive plays, at the risk of not giving yourself the opportunity to win in the red zone, not giving yourself a chance to force field goals? I think probably so. Oklahoma's run game has been sneaky poor this year relative to competition. I mean, now I understand Cincy has a decent run defense, right? Ask Pitt, but SMU's is merely okay, and they didn't really run the football effectively in that game. It's an interesting question, man. Like, what do you want to do? This kid Jalen Catalon, who Texas got from Arkansas,
yeah.
I know he hasn't played a lot of snaps this year. I assume he's been hurt, but like, when I watch his cut-ups, man, he is all over the field. Like, that's
he's violent too,
dude. Yeah, that could be a difference maker in this football game. Like, assuming he's been playing more lately, so I'm wondering if he was hurt early in the year. I just didn't have it in my notes, but that's like a major piece for them if he's healthy. That's a difference maker for those guys.
It is funny, Tom. You mentioned, the Texas defense, the Oklahoma defense. They are both really strong, right? And we look at the quarterbacks that they faced, and you need to make some adjustments for that. But I still think it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, because it's this game.
In tempo, right?
Yeah.
Like Texas wants to go a little tempo. Obviously, Oklahoma wants to go crazy tempo.
You know, whether you are looking at success rate, whether you are looking at any of the EPA statistics, like these two defenses grade very, very well, and you can't talk me into an under. Not in this game. Absolutely not. Could I? Oh, Bud, can you talk yourself into an under?
It's big game Sark. If you kind of believe in that concept, like he really gets in his bag and scheme stuff for these.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, could I bet under? I'll always bet numbers, not teams. I don't know if I will bet under, but like I could.
That's the words of I've heard a lot of professionals and smart, savvy bettors say that. No, always bet teams and vibes. That's never bet numbers.
If this game goes under, it's Texas gets up early. Texas snuffs out these Oklahoma skill guys who may or may not be good.
Right.
Right. And then like Texas reduces the tempo because they're up. You get a whole lot of Jonathan Brooks, whole lot of short passes, easy conversions. Texas kind of like that drive Texas had against Alabama, right? Like one of the most impressive drives of the year was that drive to salt the game away. That's kind of how this goes under. If Oklahoma gets up early, it's
over.
It's no doubt over.
42-14 is an under to your Texas, get up and sit on it type situation. Over under of 60, Texas favored by 6.5.